When you think of legends, few names are as iconic as Hulk Hogan. The raspy voice, the blonde mustache, the battle cry, what you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you? But now, the world has fallen silent. Hulk Hogan, the face of professional wrestling for decades, has died at 71. But what exactly ended the life of a man who once seemed indestructible? Was it sudden, and could it have been prevented? Or was it the slow buildup of damage from a lifetime of pushing too far? Subscribe to the channel to uncover the real causes behind the world's most shocking deaths and the lessons they leave behind. What happened? Hulk Hogan passed away at his home in Florida on July 24th, 2025. According to early statements from his family, it was a peaceful death during his sleep. But for a man with such an intense medical history, that word, peaceful, hides a deeper truth. Throughout his wrestling career, Hogan underwent more than 25 surgeries, including procedures on his back, hips, knees, and shoulders. He lived with chronic pain, reduced mobility, and relied heavily on strong pain medications just to function. What seemed like a natural death may actually be a case of progressive systemic failure, where the body simply can't keep going, and it all traces back to the life he lived inside and outside the ring. Human impact. Hulk Hogan's death wasn't just the loss of an icon, it was the closing of an era. For many, he was the first real-life superhero, the man who stormed into arenas with a bandana on his head, a deep orange tan, and muscles tearing through his shirt like he was saying, "Nothing can stop me." But behind the character was Terry Gene Bollea, a Florida kid who started out playing bass guitar in local rock bands and turned his passion for wrestling into a global cultural empire. His career exploded in the 1980s when the WWF, now WWE, made him the face of professional wrestling worldwide. Hogan was the first to turn wrestling into a mainstream spectacle. With millions of viewers, toys, t-shirts, movies, and catchphrases burned into pop culture. With his message to the kids, train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins, he won the hearts of children and adults alike. He held the world heavyweight title multiple times, facing off against legends like Andre the Giant, the Ultimate Warrior, Ric Flair, and Randy Savage. But Hogan's impact reached far beyond the ring. He became a cultural icon. He starred in action films, reality shows, made countless appearances at conventions and live events. His charisma went beyond wrestling. He was larger than the sport itself. In his personal life, Hogan had highs and lows. He had 2 children, Brooke and Nick, with his first wife Linda, to whom he was married for over 20 years. The family faced challenges, a public divorce, lawsuits, controversies, but Hogan always tried to rebuild, to come back stronger. In recent years, he married again, to Sky Daily, and seemed to be seeking peace away from the spotlight. Still, he remained inspirational. He visited sick fans, recorded motivational videos, and spoke openly about pain, aging, and faith. The indestructible image faded. In its place emerged a more fragile, more human figure, and, for many, a more admirable one. When news of his death broke, a wave of emotion swept across the world. Thousands of fans shared memories, photos, videos, and tears. Many said, "He made me believe I could be strong. Even when I felt small, he was my dad's hero, and he became mine too." Hulk Hogan was that, a bridge between generations. And now that he's gone, the silence is deafening. The battle cry is over, but the legacy lives on. Because as long as someone wears red and yellow, as long as a kid yells Hulkamania, as long as a fan's heart races when they hear that entrance theme, he is still alive. Mechanism of the attack. The official cause of death was listed as congestive heart failure, worsened by chronic kidney disease and years of opioid use for pain management. This type of failure occurs when the heart is no longer able to pump blood effectively. The body begins to flood itself, fluid builds up in the lungs, the kidneys begin to shut down, and every system starts to collapse. It's a silent process, and one that can take years to reach its breaking point. In Hogan's case, the long-term use of anti-inflammatories, opioids, and anabolic steroids likely accelerated the damage, wearing down his vital organs over time. Injuries. Hogan was, quite literally, a survivor of his own profession. Over the course of 30-plus years in the ring, he suffered multiple herniated discs, severe spinal degeneration, joint replacements and orthopedic surgeries, kidney damage from long-term medication use, repeated trauma to the head and chest. His body paid the price. Every slam, every landing, every twist took a toll. The pain became constant, and that pain led to dependency. To walk, to sleep, to live, he needed help from heavy medication. Emergency response. On the morning of July 24th, Hogan's wife called for him and received no response. Paramedics arrived quickly, but he was already gone. He slept with a health monitor, and data later showed a sharp drop in heart rate during the early hours of the morning, followed by respiratory arrest. When emergency services arrived, he had been deceased for several hours. There was no attempt at resuscitation. His death was officially recorded at 6:43 a.m. Investigation. There were no signs of foul play or illicit drugs in the home. The autopsy revealed an enlarged heart fluid in the lungs, pulmonary edema, advanced kidney deterioration, traces of opioids, and benzodiazepines inconsistent with prescribed therapeutic use. The conclusion, a total physiological collapse, the result of years of physical punishment, chronic medication use, and aging with untreated or ignored comorbidities. Hulk Hogan lived like a superhero and died like a mortal man, brought down by the same limits we all face. The difference is, he spent 3 decades pushing beyond those limits, without rest, without protection, and without forgiveness for his own body. Behind the icon was a man in constant pain, and his death is a reminder of what happens when we push our bodies too far, for too long, without listening. On this channel, we dive into stories like these, lives that shape the world, and deaths that reveal truths most people overlook. Subscribe now to join us on the next case, and remember, what kills isn't always visible.